other community partners is there a benefit of having the tiers?
It depends on running the tiers is all internal, so I don't think that should be a deterrence. I do think we need to extend that partnership, and I have really tried to ride that train. The early criticisms or concerns, whatever you want to call them, long-term commitment, which yes, it is. It's a long-term commitment. I know that's one of the big things, and the benefit to them, and then ultimately just long-term commitments to the big one. And so I know the school was apprehensive about 100% participation, and so understand that their tax rate's 3 times ours, so I understand that. But those are the big ones. On the county side, talking with Travis, a lot of that, he's here and he can answer any questions you need. Trying to show what really good benefit for the county. The county has a place on the square in 2 places. They have their office building and they have the courthouse, so they're physically invested in that. And I would hope that they realize that and understand that, even the ones that serve the Amarillo community. And so we will extend that partnership with them, that we need them to work with us to achieve these great goals and objectives that we want to work through. Looking around the Texas Panhandle, Potter County is involved in their tiers at Amarillo. So the Amarillo is set up in their tiers is partnered with Potter County, Amarillo College District, and I think the hospital district, I believe is that. So those, and Amarillo, City of Amarillo. So they have 4 partnerships. I know Borders got one too. Borders got the Hutchinson County, City, and the BISD. Pampa is also working on a tiers right now with the city-county partnership as well. And so there are several of these, and ongoing in the Texas Panhandle. That didn't include the South Plains area. And there's a lot of these in the state of Texas. This is not a very new concept. I want to be clear for everybody, it's not a new tax. We are delineating that the taxes that are raised in this zone have to be spent in this zone. They can't be spent for roads outside of this zone across to the east side of the city. And that's the big commitment. And the city's making a big commitment on that part, on our part. And that's our schedule.
Another advantage to moving with it now, Gary, would be that we'd be able to lock in those property values as they are today. We know that we're going to have some projects in that zone. We know that zone is going to thrive, and so if we're ever going to do that, we want to buy low, I guess is the correct term to use there, and set and come in at these standards now. The other groups can join us at any time. They don't have to join us at this point in time. But we need to, before the first of the year, we need to go ahead and lock it in at these rates. We want to get these rates as they are now, these property values now, so that if we wait, projects start to happen, and there's natural increase in those property values. Plus, as significant projects happen, those property values go up. We start to lose some of the advantage that we have of starting it now.
Travis?
No, that's a good point, Mayor. If you put this in place at any point in 2022, the base is 2022. So to remind everybody, if you have a 2021 base, the first year of increment is 22, paid January 31st, 23. So this is a process that if you decide to do this, you just kind of have to do it. Or when you hear about a big project, you wish you would have had it in place. As Joe said, I'm helping Pampa, thanks to a recommendation from them. I was there last week. Going back in a couple of weeks, they're doing the tours in their downtown area as well. County judge was there listening in. Doing this in downtown Victoria, going through this exact same process last week. We had a meeting of their different taxing entities, stakeholders, answering these same kinds of questions. And I think that there are ways to address the county's concerns about this being long-term, put some triggers in place or some benchmarks we have to hit, and if we don't, they have the right to revisit it. It makes sense that they did that maybe years 10 to 15 just because it does take time, but there are some ways, I think, and some strategies used in other communities to get them more comfortable with that 25-year commitment. And to remind them that the the burden's on the city to cause economic development and growth. You know, it's not a huge administrative process. If you just have one of these, if you fill out an annual report, the city manager's familiar with this online at the comptroller, you show up in their annual report. So it's not a huge burden.
They'll probably in the first several years meet once a year.
Yep, and then if I read that right, it says the 46 or whatever, but that's commission, we can do away with it and do the one.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so it's not like
Yeah.
tied to that line.
Correct, and as I said last time, if you do issue debt, you do create bond covenants. Sometimes you can issue debt, so that's, you know, this is likely to be pay as you go.
In a year, we don't
Correct.
like what's going on, we can do away with it.
Right.
It's not like you're locked in.
Yeah.
Correct, so I'd say, you know, give it a couple years, and if growth's not happening, or maybe so much growth is happening that you want to scale it back from 100 to 75, you can absolutely do that. But again, the key is to put that first step of locking in that 2021 base. I think I've talked offline with folks, there's some known projects that are sort of floating around that are likely to happen in the short term. And so it's important, and as we think about city-owned property or EDC-owned property, if we can get those on the tax rolls quickly, that gets us a jump, a bump in values. And so that's the other strategy, is how do you strategically work with partners to just increase that tax base. And so I think you're right, the county's got a couple buildings down here, this is the county's seat, downtowns are the heart of the city, and you need to drive your down.
Exactly right, Travis, it is their county seat too, so it improves, you know, the infrastructure around their county seat too, so.
And as we said to them before, and I said this to you, well, you gotta have enough money in there to make it worthwhile, but you can't have too much so it comes at the expense of other parts of the community. And I think we've tried to strike that balance with the size of the zone and the amount of increment that could likely get generated. But it's not gonna solve all the problems. I mean, we're gonna have to come up with other funding sources and grants. I mean, there's more need in that downtown plan we're working on than the tourist can provide money. So this isn't gonna solve all the funding problems.
Staff's been very aggressive on that approach. You know, we've applied twice already for downtown. If we, you know, I think we're looking at a third time to apply for water and sewer. I know if we apply for sidewalks, it'll probably get funded. Sidewalks always gets boosted more once we're ready to be at that point. And so there are some there's at least one grant funding opportunity that we can go after as well. And we will continue to do that.
So under the eligible project costs, there's 5 different categories.
Mhm.
You know, I'm thinking probably even from our standpoint, or even clarification for the county, what we're looking at, but I'm just pulling out what I'm understanding, but really big impetus of this is helping us to fund that downtown master plan. And so really probably most of it would be geared towards the infrastructure improvements or the streetscape. Is that,
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out, but.
Those are what we're seeing in, you know, water, sewer, fiber, you know, all the infrastructure surrounding that area. And you know, gateway into, on 15, things like that.
I think the committee, the makeup of that committee, which you all are gonna control a portion of that, if not all of that, they're gonna see that too. They're gonna know that. I don't think there's gonna be this pie in the sky project that you all aren't gonna, it doesn't make sense for that zone.
I wouldn't do any property tax, you know, economic development, I wouldn't do any property tax abatement
No.
down there. That's kind of dumb to do because you're needing that tax dollar. It doesn't make sense to do that. We've only got one property tax or payment or filing in the whole town, so that's one thing we want to avoid, trying to do property tax
The
abatement.
economic development part, we really have very active EDC in that area too, so.
We do.
And just to remind everybody of the process, if you all go forward, you create a board, we take that plan and build it out for the final project and finance plan where we can refine that project list. I wrote it broad on purpose. We can refine it, and then that plan has to come back to you all for approval. So there's still 1 or 2 more layers of approval that come back through you all. That doesn't have to get done this year. We don't want to lose momentum, so we'll try to come back in early January. But, and then what I would do, once I'm gone and done on the downtown plan, you can amend the project and finance plan and more closely link it to the cost estimates that Freeze and Nichols are working on that are gonna be part of that downtown plan. So we could say up to $2 million on sidewalks, and we can refine it. They're still a couple months away, but you can update the plan as well.
The plan, John's been working as a recent, they'll have itemized projects commission in the downtown plan. They'll have their own CIP in the downtown plan. So that'll allow us to get a little closer to what those actual fixed costs are. Yeah. I know school district and county may want more than one seat. They've mentioned that. They may want 2 seats. I know we have it defined as 1. I think Travis and I have discussed that. I don't think there's any issue with that if y'all don't have any issue with that. So right now it's 5. And we can amend that right now if we wanted to. I know the county has mentioned that to me. I haven't had enough time to talk to ISD about that. But 5, and if they wanted to come on, they have 2 seats. I know that's.
So we go to like 7 at that point in time.
Correct.
We bump it all up to 7.
And if the county came on, it'd be 7, and then if the school came on, it'd be 9. And if hospital district came on, that's very minimal, but.
The city will continue to have the majority votes.
I think that'd be a wise move, until county.
So that's not an issue. I would say, once we know they're on board, just come back through ordinance and just add 2 board seats for them. So you can start with 5, that's the minimum, the max is 15. So as people come on, we can just amend the ordinance, and you can do that, internally, just add those board seats. That's not an issue.
If we kept that small intentionally now, knowing that we're the only ones that are committed to it at this point in time, knowing that for you all to come up with 7 people and have a board of 7, and we're the only ones there, that 5 works. But as if other entities come in, then allowing them to, if they want more of a voice, then that's fine.
Unless you have the agreement worked out ahead of time, I recommend most cities start with 5, just because it's easier to find 5 votes than 7. It's easier to get your quorum, and they got to follow the same posting guidelines, and these are public meetings and all those kinds of things. So start with 5, and then just kind of increase it as needed. Is the best way.
The other piece, they may, both other entities may want to revisit it, like Travis said, maybe 10 years ago. Would y'all be okay with that?
Yeah. And literally, the law allows them to go out anytime they want to, Paul, like we could close it, they could say, I want to come out now.
So they would address those things in the interlocal agreement when they join. That's where they would have to specify their conditions. The most common is the county's in for the same number of years the city's in. That's the most common way. Other times they have a 10-year out, or a certain number of board seats. Or in Dallas, if you have housing, you got to spend the money on affordable housing. You can't do market rate housing. So there's some exceptions to that, but most typically just join for the full 25 with the same increments that they do not have to.
So I guess if they come in and we issue a bond, and we've got to use the funds for that debt service, and they want out, we just take care of that from our regular city budget.
We would write the ordinance that says if there's a bond, then they can't get out in 10 years.
That'd be the kicker. You're going to stay in because we have a bond now. And it's several.
But you're not there for a couple more years.
It's several years before we got it.
Right.
We could get like a $3 million bond or something like
Correct.
that. As far as to make
Correct.
that, we'd have to have the funds to make that payment.
Correct.
And so it's several years till we build up that.
And you may not have to go there. Some just do pay as you go. So it's up to you all to decide how you want to do that. But I think they're probably nervous and apprehensive because they haven't done it. But once things start happening, people tend to get excited, and they say, like, I think everybody agrees the sidewalks could use some work. I mean, these aren't like controversial projects, I don't think, right? Drainage and those kinds of things. You're not competing with another city. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Downtowns tend to be the easiest, just because most people want to have a thriving downtown. And so it's not like an industrial, project or something.
So if the CISD being the bigger part, they could come in at any level. They don't have to come in at 50%. They could come in and say 30%. We want to contribute close to what you all are.
Yeah, we suspected that, so I think we would still honor that. Hopefully they come in. 50% would be ideal, which one in terms of 85%. Yep.
Again, we understand they're totally a different beast as far as funding and all of those kind of things, and that they have other responsibilities and other things they have to look at compared to us. We're here to take care of the city of Canyon They have 700 square miles.
They believe in the cause we're going for. The hard part on their side is they serve Amarillo too, and setting a precedence on them. So if they do it with us, if Amarillo came, you know, that was one of their comments to us. I understand. That's something we have to wait.
To me, Randall County is not necessarily setting a precedent because this is their county seat, so they're, I mean.
But the most, in our
Somebody
eyes,
else could argue.
And I agree, we agree with you.
it may be their county seat. All the services offered in Canyon are replicated in Amarillo.
Right.
So, a lot more constituents in Amarillo.
We just need to ask our partner to help us. And we need to do that from a kindness, loving standpoint.
But you know, what I would say to them is if they have a project that makes sense for tourism in another part of the county, they should just go do it too. I mean, there's reasons you do them and there's reasons you don't, so maybe this might help them say, hey, it may make sense to do one in Amarillo too.
Well, and ultimately, the vision is too, you're increasing their tax base.
Correct.
By doing this.
Correct.
Yeah.
More sales tax, more hotel tax, more people are coming to the area, I mean, so everyone's gonna benefit, and so I'd say to them honestly, look, you may find a project in Amarillo that makes sense, and I'm sure the folks in Canyon would say, go do it. If it makes sense, go grow that part of Amarillo.
Anybody have any other thoughts?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 1147.
Second.
Have a motion and second to adopt ordinance number 1147. Any further discussion? All in favor of the ordinance, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. All right, thank you. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We look forward to that. Joe and I have talked about this a great deal, and I think hopefully it'll be a good thing.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think it's an exciting deal. So.
It's what communities our size do. It's moved, we're big enough to do it, and we need to be doing this.
Well, the whole downtown master plan is exciting, and this is just an exciting piece to add to that to help get it done. So. All right, item number 9, to conduct first public hearing on ordinance number 1146, annexing territory to the city of Canyon for the lost, and ordinance of the city of Canyon, Texas, annexing the territory herein described to the city of Canyon and Randall County,
Hold on for a
Texas.
second. We need to do a public hearing on tiers, do we not?
No. Is there?
You need to probably have the public
Yes.
hearing first, then close it, and then read.
Was.
Correct. We do need to do the public hearing on the tiers.
Listed. and
Oh,
I
yeah,
went over
yeah,
it.
we do.
Sorry.
Number 8, yeah.
I apologize, I was looking at the wrong one.
It was on the top. That was the first one.
I apologize to you. I tell you what, we will go back, and we will re-vote on the motion, but prior to that, we will open the public hearing, in regard to the tiers. Does anyone say? We'll close the public hearing. Tell you what, to do it in the proper order, let's go ahead and to adopt ordinance number 1147. Let's go ahead and take the vote again after the public hearing. So all in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
And I have Commissioner Ray making that motion with Mayor Pro Tem Jones seconding.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. I'll start back here. I'm not sure where we were at.
Number 9.
No, I'll start back here. To conduct first public hearing on ordinance number 1146, annexing territory to the city of Canyon for the loss, and ordinance of the city of Canyon, Texas, annexing the territory of Kansas, extending the boundary limits of the city of Canyon to include the property herein described. granting to all inhabitants of said property all the rights and privileges of other citizens, and binding said inhabitants by all of the acts, ordinances, resolutions, and regulations of said city. Chuck? Explain.
Mayor, this is an unopposed annexation upon the petition of the landowner. Mr. Ware is one of the principal owners in a limited liability company that's applied for annexation of this land as the first step in the lost development. I'm not aware of any opposition to this, and we have previously adopted an annexation calendar, which does call for 2 public hearings this evening under separate agenda items. No action will be taken. It will only be to hear any public input if anyone desires to speak as to the annexation. So the item number 9 will be the first public hearing there.
All right, is there any other questions or discussions? With that, we will open the public hearing.
Nobody has signed in here.
All right. And we will close the public hearing.
That's the only action we have to take.
Okay. And kind of an interesting way to do it, but then we will go directly to item number 10, to conduct a second public hearing on ordinance number 1146. And with that, would open the public hearing again.
Nobody else signed in.
Thank you. All right, we will close the public hearing, and no action is required, so.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, with a little bit of reluctance.
A little?
I move we adjourn.
All right.
You don't have to second, you just have to get up and go.
Well, thank you all. You know, I know it's a lot of hours put in, but the whole process really is important to help.
Get up,
I think
get up,
set
win.
the goals on our
I'll see y'all again tomorrow.
Yes, look
Yeah, I'm
forward to
gonna
it.
just leave your notebooks at your place. I'll just kind of clean up around it. We'll be good. Thanks, Tricia.
3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, right?
Yes, 3 o'clock tomorrow.
Gretchen, you're saying leave the notebook?
Yeah,
we'll
there.
clean up around
We'll
it.
take care of it, but that way you can follow around.
I want to say thank you to you guys too for serving our community. You know, y'all do your time in here, and I appreciate that. So.
Well, I enjoy it except hanging out with these guys. Everything but hanging out with these guys. It's fine.
It kind of improved the quality of the crowd, do it?
Yeah.
You can hang out.
What do you do?
Yes.
Head back up to Amarillo and work. Exciting life of traveling.
What time do you fly out? Early?
6:45 in the morning.
I spent the last week in Vastra. We were online to
Resort. Yeah, I think lots of drive.
We drove.
They gotta do read this.
We went to Ewansport.
Oh, gonna be half an hour.
We're gonna do our conference there, TCMA.
Yeah, sure.
And so we were on to
They have those conferences there.
Let me look.
All the time.
I have to say, if you do come